Yeah. Thank you so much for stretching your evening and staying back to hear me out. It's an honor and a privilege to talk to you all. People who have how many of you are starting your program today? Awesome, great. And how many of you are not in the program but really come here to listen in and maybe engage more? Great, awesome. Um, when I think about this day today, just about around 13 years back, it was I think 3rd of June 2006, and very similar auditorium in a campus in Bangalore, and I was starting my executive MBA program. So those of you who are starting it today, welcome to the grind. This is going to be not easy for sure. What you have signed up for is not uh, is not an easy program. So that's, I don't know if Pinkesh did tell you about this. I'm sure he did. That what lies ahead of you is definitely an intense grilling, period of 18 months. Uh, when I started out at IIM Bangalore, my program, it was called the PGSEM program in IIM Bangalore, and uh, they used to call it an executive program or a part-time program. Honestly, none of that was true. Actually, it was an overtime program. You had a full 5 days of work, and then you were actually overtiming into your further education. And that's something which I ended up doing for 3 years. It was a 2.5 to 3 year program. I finished in 3 years. And I can tell you, this is exactly that nature, and far more intense because it is 18 months, and also you will have those 5 days of the work that you'll be focused on doing your work and then coming here on Saturday and a Sunday. And obviously, those 5 days are not going to be discounted. Nobody in your organization is going to discount that you are going for an executive education show. So you should be given some kind of a leeway and some flexibility in your deliverables. That's not going to happen. And at the same time, your program is not going to be relaxed because they will not give you the discount that you are working professionals. So you will be given some discount in terms of the quality of the deliverables. I know Pinkesh very well. He's not going to compromise that either. Now you are stuck in between these two, right? We used to have a joke around at that time that it's like jugglery. How many of you have families? How many of you have families with kids? Welcome. This is going to be really fun. Yeah, you'll have three things and you're going to be juggling around with that. You've got a family, you've got your work, and you've got your studies. And there's fourth, I will throw in very soon. But these three, and when you juggle with three, what happens? No, imagine you're still able, you're a good juggler, you're able to juggle. But jugglery is all about one is always in the air. If you have two in the hand, but one is going to be always in the air. And which one is going to be in the air, you choose based on that moment. There's an assignment coming, so work is in the air. There's a family emergency, so something else in the air, right? And that's going to happen very constantly. And the fourth dimension that is also going to be important, and you have to be careful about that, is your health, right? Your mental, physical health. You're signing up for a program which is going to be intense for 18 months. You are not going to go through it unless you have really taken care of yourself, your mental stability, your physical stability, all of that. So make sure you don't juggle the balls around too much. But at the same time, it's fun. I can tell you for sure. What will happen on the other side is going to be really amazing. So first of all, I salute your spirit that you've signed up for a program like this, because it tells me something that you have a fire. You are uncomfortable where you are right now. I think that's a great place to be. If you are uncomfortable in doing things that you are doing today, this is the perfect situation to be in, because that restlessness will make sure that you are going to do enough to make sure that these things are juggled well, you're managing them well, and the jugglery is in a beautiful sync and you'll come out on the other side. The second is that this is going to be a touchstone moment for you. You know what a touchstone is, right? If you touch it, it changes you. So this is going to change you. This is going to significantly metamorphose what you are going to be after 18 months. If you're already uncomfortable and sign up for this program, when you go on the other side, you're going to be extremely uncomfortable in the jobs that you are doing. So those of you who are already product managers, you will not be comfortable in the roles that you are, the way you have been doing things, because this program will change you. Those of you who are not product managers or product leaders will be uncomfortable in doing what you are doing today in those respective companies, and that will change you for sure. So it's going to change you 100%. Right? So those are my opening thoughts on what you have signed up for, and I can tell you congratulations. This is something which is a great state to be in, and don't let yourself be bogged down by whatever happens to you for the next 18 months. Right? Just sail along, and you'll be on the other side, and you'll realize. One thing that I gained on the other side was suddenly I did not understand how, but I had a lot of time in my life. After completing my program, I didn't know what to do with my time, because there's so much time. I learned to manage the time in those 2.5, 3 years, such that on the other side of it, I had so much time that started engaging with various other activities and various things that has kind of given me much more value. So that's another thing that will be a side effect of what is going to happen in this program. Cool. With that, how we can take the next maybe 20-25 minutes forward is, and then I'll stop for any questions towards the end of it. What do product managers do differently? Right? We have seen enough at least in the Indian context. If you've worked in international companies and multinationals, you have seen that those companies have very different culture in India, right? To start with, we started out in India, and I can tell from my past experiences, as a delivery-centric organization, right? So we started out as focus on delivery. There's a decision being made, you guys just focus on the delivery. And just prior to that, the situation was that we started with the delivery is already decided, you just test it. Make sure that this is high quality. Starting with the testing. Then moved on to software development. And went into an intensity of development itself. Slowly it started to emerge that we have excelled in that, and we have excelled in the delivery. We have now also started taking a foray into product management roles, and that also didn't come just directly. We were initially product owners. And take the requirement from someone who has actually been doing it out there in the market, translate those requirements, work very closely with the engineering team and make sure that you deliver that. And then started the phase where you actually started to become product managers. You started to play that product leader's role, where you actually are taking those requirements not from someone, but you're going and actually writing those requirements yourself. And that's the phase which is now far deep now. And we as an industry in India have actually matured in that significantly. And probably a lot of that is going to do with the MNCs which are here, which have now established great faith. You have companies like SAP, you've got Google, Yahoo, Intuit, you have Amazon, who have deep faith in this talent to really deliver the high quality product management function out of India and delivering globally. It's not like that we are doing it only for India as a market. It's global. There are products that have come out from this place which are impacting global audiences, and it is the constraint of the scenario here sometimes led to those products. Have you seen how YouTube offline translated into YouTube Red? It all started here because we had very limited bandwidth, and there was always those buffering that was happening. And as a result, you realize the content was not getting delivered to the audiences, and you still wanted the audience to look at your content. So YouTube PMs brought out offline capabilities, that you can actually download the video offline while you are on a Wi-Fi, and as you get on a bus or a train or even an aircraft, you can actually view that content while you are on the move. So you don't need to be constantly on internet, and that offline came in, and that translated into something called as YouTube Red to the US market, where the same product which got tested right here at a very minimal bandwidth actually became a full-fledged product. And there are numerous examples like this which have really translated from here and went out to their parent markets. And often we say the products are being designed in the Western markets and the developed market and brought in here as for consumption. LinkedIn is an example. You've got many others. Facebook is one other example. Now, the Facebook Lite was not something which was designed for the US market. It was designed for markets like India, which have at that time, I'm talking about 3 years back, before Jio came in, the internet was not so penetrable, it was not so much available, and this is what happened. Now, if you go into the shoes of those product managers, let's try to just be that little object and go inside their brains. What are these PMs doing? How are they really thinking about these products? How are they really transforming those products? What is it that they are really able to do? I think there are multiple examples, and I can give a couple of examples from Intuit itself. But an ability to empathize with the customer. How we see PMs who write requirements, right? You go and write requirements, and pages of requirements are written, user stories are written, but that's not enough. That's the next step. That's an execution step in product management. I think you've beautifully seen this framework as well, which Pinkesh would have talked to you about, right? It starts out of what are you choosing to build, and that choosing to build as a PM is a very important step, and that can only happen when you are actually really immersing yourself in that experience and the problem of the customer. Now, I'll give you one example. We had Intuit had a product, QuickBooks, for a long period of time. If I take you back in time, when 30 years back this product came into existence, there was one of our co-founders. He was sitting in his home on a dining table with his wife, and his wife was struggling to manage her accounts, the home accounts. She was really writing it down in the notes in her diary, trying to translate all of that, making the cash flow statements of a home, how much money is on the table, how much is not there, what do we need for our future needs, and all of that. That is happening in his house right there. And most co-founders are great product managers, by the way, because they're able to spot an opportunity. And he thought that this is a great opportunity. What if I actually bring in a product which can manage this whole situation for households? They're able to enter their financial details, and they're able to see their cash flow situations. They're able to plan their future financial needs, and come out on the other side much more happy, much more successful. And so that's where it started. And he made a product called Quicken, and it was interesting. This was a product started out with a household situation, was supposed to be for the household, and as we brought the product out, sometime down the line, we realized that sales were not so much happening inside the households. It was actually the small businesses which were buying this product. And these are small mom and pop shops, small businesses with one person owning the shop or the business, or a small warehouse or a small factory, and they are using this product to manage their business accounting. And they are managing the accounting through this product. And Intuit has got a culture which is extremely focused on the customer, and we call it follow me homes. Follow me home is when a product manager actually goes inside the customer premises, and we actually live and stay with the customer for that moment. We immerse ourselves in that whole period of time. Now, what really happens in that scenario is you are watching a customer using your product in their settings, and you will uncover amazing things that they are doing with your product. And that's when we actually realize that our product is being used by businesses. Oh my God, this was designed for households, and now it's being used by businesses. What really is happening? And we realized that we ended up building features and functionality in the product which were more suited for business to manage the accounting needs. And as a result, you realize there's an opportunity for a business. A business has got it has more capability to pay. And as a result, when that translated, we started saying, okay, let's do it full out. Let's build something called as QuickBooks. That's when Quicken translated into being QuickBooks. Now, as this product came out, it became a huge success in the market. It was a desktop product, and the PMs, they were doing this constant exercise of following me home. They were going in the customer premises. They were living with the customer for that period of time, seeing how they're watching, how they're really using the product. Where are they facing the difficulty? Right? So, for example, one of the recent enhancement that we did, it's a very small enhancement, but takes so much of an effort from a PM side that that the PM puts in the effort there. There are invoices that you send out to your customers. So if you are a small and medium business, you're sending out invoices to your. Now, as the invoices go out, if there are many invoices going out, you want to also track which invoice has been paid, which invoice is still due, what is the status of those invoices. Now, this is a very small thing. I mean, we could just make something out and send it out to the customers and say, hey, this is what is going, what is the solution. But no, the PMs immerse themselves in that whole process to see exactly what is happening. What are these customers looking for? Oh, so they're looking for the status of the invoices that have been sent out. And when I go deeper into it and realize, I can't build a flashy product here, because imagine you are in a desktop situation. There's a desktop product. They need to seek the status of the invoice. Obviously, there has to be a service that needs to talk to the cloud and bring it back here. Now, there's an existing paradigm of the product, the UI paradigm and the design paradigm. You don't want to disrupt that and build a solution which will still cater to this need. I'm just giving this one example. Why? Because you will not be able to go and empathize deeply with the customers unless you've seen all these scenarios, and then you bring this insight back into your realities of what is possible in the technology, what is not possible in technology, and then you have those conversations and improvise on the fly, and then you go back and write a solution which is something which will delight the customers. Now they don't have to do 20 clicks to reach at the same place. They get the same information about the invoice right there. Very simple solution. I think what's the big deal about it? But solving it in a way that is highly adaptable, or which has a potential of high adoption, is something which is very crucial. I'll give you one more example. Now, QuickBooks has got the online product as well. A lot of our customers, they use the product through these software as a service. Now, what we realize is that there are different kind of businesses. You have a small business like a grocery store. You can have a small 7-Eleven kind of a shop. You can also have another mom and pop store. You can have artists, painters, designers. The boutique owners. They're different. There's a flower owner shop. Just try to go and empathize and try to picture yourself when I'm saying these words. Who are these people? There could be Uber drivers, right, who are actually managing their own finances, who are also a business in itself, right? They are driving a car. They have to file their taxes. Now, this happened in one of these follow me homes. Some of the Uber drivers were actually using our product, and they were trying to they were struggling to see how can this interface be made much more easier for the Uber drivers or people who are really using it for because they've got two things, right? They use that car for the business, which is they drive it for customers like us. They also use that car for their own personal use, right? So they are also, this one individual, this guy is doing a business, this guy is also using the car for the personal use. Now, if I have to separate my personal versus business expenses, how will I do that? Now, it was interesting that this insight that this one person is actually also using it for personal use while he's also a Uber driver, that insight came in when the PMs actually rode with the Uber drivers. They were actually in the car, took the ride with these guys, and actually in the car with them, talking to them, understanding what is really happening, immersing in that experience. And what came out on the other side was, this insight was brought in, and the designers and the PM sat together and they are trying to understand what is really happening here. There's an Uber driver, he's on the move, he has an expense, and let's try to find out where all this is happening. This kind of decision making is going to happen in many places, and you'll be amused to see what is the approach that the team took for that. So they took Tinder as an example, that you take a decision to date someone or not date someone by swiping right or swiping left. So here's a personal expense, I swipe it left. Here's a business expense, I swipe it right. So I present all these statements or all the transactions in front of the for user, and the user has to all do is swipe a left or swipe a right, and it's done. Everything else the product does in the background. It will make sure that his business expenses are factored in and they are all translated into his cash flow statement for the business, and his taxes are filed accordingly. And the personal side is taken care of as well. Now you would go into the shoes of those product managers and realize that these guys are doing something very, very special at this stage, right? And I'm talking about the top 1% of the product managers in the world who are creating products which are highly successful products. QuickBooks SE, we call it self-employed. QuickBooks Self-Employed is a version of QuickBooks Online which is which is a very successful product in the US. And for no surprise, this is something because you are going in the shoes of the customers, trying to identify what problems are they really facing, and then translating that into the requirement. Now, these things are done by PMs around the world who are really top class product managers, and you'll see that you will have limitations around your technical landscape. All of that is secondary. We'll talk about all of that secondary. And if you start wearing your technical hat right in the beginning, that hey, this is not possible, I cannot do this, I'm an on-premise solution, I cannot think of these scenarios in my product. Stop all of that. I mean, these are all discussions later on. These are all conversations you will have with your engineering team, with your execution team much later in the horizon. But as a PM first, are you able to even spot the problem? Are you able to go to the place where you say that this is the problem that I'm trying to solve? I think that's something which is very, very special for a product manager. And building that customer empathy, having that intellectual curiosity that you are really looking for what problem this customer is really facing, or what is this customer segment really pained with mostly. Understanding that and then translating that to a requirement which will really delight them. So delight will only happen when you have actually done enough grilling and grueling job on upfront, on the upstream, to really sit with the guys, make sure that you are immersing yourself in that experience of your customer, and then translating that requirement into your product solutions. I think that's something which is very, very crucial. Second is, and this goes a lot along the design thinking as well. So you will probably experience a lot of that, and we have a very similar design philosophy and the product philosophy into it as well. And when I was in SAP, we used to have design thinking as one of our core tenets. And I think in this curriculum you will also learn design thinking. And design thinking does something special to you as an individual, right? You will be able to really immerse yourself in that experience of the customer. You will actually live the customer's life through those experiences, and then only you live in the problem world for long enough that you are able to do the solutions much later, and those solutions are going to be far more impactful as compared to what you will jump in the first instant. So there'll be an instant will tell you, let's solve it this way, right? But there's another decision that the PM has to take. One is what to solve, and the other is what not to solve. And then what not to solve or what not to do is also a very crucial aspect of a product manager. There'll be 100 choices in front of you. You will have all those solutions in front of you, but what not to do is also equally important. And you will not be able to do what not. You come to a place where you say, I don't want to do this, unless you have you've experienced that problem space for enough amount of time. Really immerse yourself in that space. You will not be able to translate that to what not to do. And I think that's really very important for a top class PM. So just those initial thoughts, and I thought I'll share these things with you. Happy to answer and take any questions. Go ahead.
So,
if you could tell your name as well.
Yeah, my name is Vaibhav.
Okay.
So the query I have is that the business scenarios which you spoke about. So if we see that the classes in which the users for product can be documented,
yeah,
the number of those classes will be really huge, and the number of people in those classes also will be there.
Yeah.
So when we immerse ourselves in a situation, there will be multiple other situations also in which we may have missed. So obviously, I know it's a iterative way in which we will find whether the changes which are making the right way or not. So I just wanted to understand that other than that iteration, is there any other guidelines which folks follow to make sure that we cover the different user experiences?
Yeah, so no, I think that's a very, very valid question, Vaibhav. So you're talking about customer segments, right? So there are customer segments, and for your product, and let's talk about both the scenarios, right? Let's talk about scenario of an existing product. Let's talk about scenario of a net new innovation that you're trying to do, right? And if you see the net new scenarios, you have no product existing today, right? And you want to solve certain problems. There'll be enough personas which are going to be there. Now, what is important is that's where if you're talking to significant sample of people from different of these personas, you will be able to understand that what are the cross section of the problem that if I solve will be significantly important for these users. So there are two approaches you could take. One is you can take the commonality of problem and say, I'm going to solve this common problem for my entire customer segment, right? That's one approach. Or the approach is, I take these 4 customer segments out of the 10 that I have and I solve it beautifully for these 10. These 4. I mean, out of these 10, I don't want to solve for 6. And that's when you make that choice. That I am taking a decision not to solve for these 6. I may solve for them later. But to begin with, for this product, which I'm starting out right now, I will just solve for these 4 and solve it beautifully for them. And if I'm able to really click that checkbox, that I have solved it in a way that is really making their life easy, it will start to do the trick. Right? Let's talk about the other scenario. You have an existing product. Now, the existing product, you may have customer persona which are in multiple industries. You may have customer persona in multiple age groups. Right? Now, if you're doing an incremental innovation, which is you're adding a new feature set to your product. Now, how do you get this requirement? Where is this requirement coming from? It may come from if you're an existing product, it may come from customer support. Right? A lot of pain points come from the customer support. It may come from a sales team. That, hey, I'm not able to sell this product because whenever I'm in a sales conversation, these features are missing and I want to address these features. And if you address these features, I will be able to sell better. It may come from your customer immersions, the PMs who are going and meeting the customers, and customers themselves are telling that, hey, I'm really facing a problem, or I think there's a solution here, or can you really solve this problem for me? It may come from competitors, right? That you have your competitive product which is also existing in the market, which is showing all these features and enhancements, which is not there in the product. There could be multiple sources from which these things are coming. Now, organizations try to solve it in different ways, but I'll tell you what is probably 2 or 3 good approaches to solve a scenario like this. One is if you're looking at your product portfolio, right? And I know we are going into product portfolio planning discussions, but this is important for your question that you asked. That if you look at a product portfolio, for an existing product, there's enough amount of investment you will have to do on your technical stack, or the technical debt, as we call it. You will have to address that. There's a new technology that has come in, or there is a transition you might have to do from your existing landscape to an AWS or whatever that might be. That is one portion of it. There are incrementals that you have to do. So, for example, there are bug fixes, there are issues in the current product that you might have to solve. The customers are already complaining about it. You want to solve that. Now, what do you pick? Has to be a bouquet of all these scenarios to really address. Now, when as a PM or as a product leader, you are taking a decision on that, you may choose in a particular release to totally not address something, right? And this will differ from the product context as well. If you're a B2B product, which is catering to large ticket sales, and you have a highly screaming customer who is contributing to 10-20% of your revenue, you definitely want to get into that, right? But if you are a product which is a B2C product, which is catering to millions of customers, and you are getting customer insights either through your sales agents, or you're getting it from your customer support, or understanding it from the data, usage data from a product itself, and you take a decision, oh no, if I solve this interaction problem, I might address hundreds of thousands of users. I'm able to really solve a larger set of problems, right? But I'm taking the choice, conscious choice, making a conscious choice to only solve this problem and not solve the other. And these are scenarios that you will live in day out as a PM to make those choices, make those decisions. Was that you're looking for?
How good you are as a PM depends on the choice.
Yeah, and choices of what to do is as important as what not to do. And both those play very conjointly in delivering that delight that you're looking for in the end. Would you be able to satisfy everybody? I don't think so. If you go back to Steve Jobs' interview, there's one beautiful interview, you might find it on YouTube, is where he makes the statement that I am every day being criticized as a CEO of Apple of not doing 100 things. And there are so many of those requirements that come our way which we decide not to do. But it's important for us to be clear on what we don't want to do. Only then you will be doing and picking up things which are going to make a maximum impact. And a lot of these things, in case of new innovations, customers don't know about, right? They don't know what is lying ahead. You actually make the choice on their behalf because you have that insight. You have that understanding of what's coming in tech stack, what's coming in the new technology, and what is the problem that customers are really picking up for. Taking enough examples of Apple products which are there. I just talked about the swipe left and swipe right scenario for this the QuickBooks SE. These are the insights that you're getting from. There could have been multiple ways in which you can solve that problem, or how do I differentiate my personal finance versus my business finance, and it's a choice that you make as a product manager or as a designer. Yeah.
So if you're looking for a product manager, what are the skills specifically you look for? I know there are a lot of things for the product manager.
Yeah.
So what specifically you look for? That's one area where it's must have, could have, should have. So
yeah.
Categories are the things.
Yeah. Let me talk about first what is nice to have. Domain is nice to have. So a lot of PMs, when you're going for an interview for a company, you will, I don't know the domain. Domain is a nice to have. If you have it, great. If you don't have it, absolutely fine. If as a PM, I expect you to come and learn the domain very quickly. If you are a product manager, it's not going to be hard for you to learn a domain. Now, let me say it very carefully, because there are certain products which require you to be very, very domain intensive. Let's keep that apart. Right? For majority of the cases where the domain is peripheral, in most of those cases, you'll realize the domain is peripheral. It's nice to have. You know it, great. If you don't know it, absolutely fine. You come in, I expect you to learn the domain in no time. But what is going to be crucial for you is, are you a person who has intellectual curiosity, who is extremely analytical, who is able to have customer empathy? Are you able to really immerse yourself in the customer scenario? Do you have an ability to work with the engineering team, with the designers, with your other cohorts in the program management organization, in the marketing organization? Are you able to do that cross-sectional stakeholder management? Do you have great communication skills? And when I say communication skills, it's not just about the English that you talk. It's about how you make that impact. It's about how you articulate your conversation. It's also about how you structure your thoughts. How do you design your conversation flow? All of that is very important, because a product manager is a great storyteller. If you're not able to tell the story, you will not be able to make a cut. So it's important for you to communication. Often people confuse that. I know I am able to speak great English, and I should be just on the communication side. I don't think so. I've had in many interviews candidates getting rejected because they were having great English, great vocabulary, but just could not construct a flow of communication. So communication, there's a verbal communication, there is visual communication, right? Are you able to, at least, I'm not expecting you to be a great designer and design high fidelity mock-ups with Photoshop or anything like that. But are you comfortable picking a pen and drawing a line on the board or not? Can you actually tell your idea visually? Are you able to at least express that this is how I'm visualizing my flow to be, right? And if you're not comfortable with that, it's going to be hard for you to be a product manager with products which have any user interface. See, PMs come in different flavors, right? You have got a product manager requirement for an extremely technical product, which is talking about how you really run a ETL job from one system to the other, and you might have a product manager role there as well. If it does not have a visual interface or an interface where users are really interacting with, probably it's great. I mean, that's not something which will require someone to be visually great. But someone who has got great visual skills or visual communication will be able to do the conversations with their counterparts much more effectively, right? Even in that role, right? So it's important for you to have great communication skills, both visual, verbal, and the way you are telling your story, the way you are articulating your entire communication, the way you are kind of structuring that whole thing. So it's very important. So those are the few things that definitely are crucial for you to be a product manager.
Hi, Ravi.
Hey, Ravi.
Can you just talk first the product managers for watching?
Top three
Pitfalls or areas where you have to watch out for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a great, great question, Ravi. And this is something uh, which often as a PM will face. One of them is you you're going with a subjective orientation to a problem. So, for example, if you have to be empathetic enough that you're not sympathizing with the customer problem. And there's a difference between the two, right? If you immerse yourself in the customer problem to empathize with the customer so that you can come out and solve, you are like a doctor who's going to come and actually solve that problem for the patient. But if you get too emotionally involved in that and try to make decisions very upfront and try to defend your decision, that's not a great situation to be in. You have to be very comfortable with changing your stand as the data speaks otherwise. So if you're relying on the data, and suppose you have taken a position in the early part of it, and the data comes to you, you're constantly seeking data. If data comes to you and says, no, actually what you started out as an assumption with is not right. This is data which is telling you otherwise. You should be extremely comfortable by switching a stand and say, no, in the light of this new information, this thing that we've learned, this is how we have to approach. You might take a stand which is probably very different from what it is. And that as a PM, not very product manager are very comfortable with that. I've seen people who take a stand who are emotionally so involved in that whole situation that it becomes hard for them to really make a switch in their stand. And they churn out products on the other side which are not adopted by the customers. So that's something which is also very crucial. At the same time, it's a fine balance between analyzing the data but not getting to the analysis paralysis. Not really having a bias for action is very important, right? So if you get into a trap of getting too much of analysis done on the data and you're constantly just doing that, not really churning something out on the other side, that becomes a big trap, right? So have a bias for action, make an assumption, seek data, take an action, and move forward. Change your stand as you get new insights into this whole process and learn from that. And that's all about the iterative process that we were just initially talking about. That iteration can only happen when you're comfortable with changing your position as well. Those are a few things that you should really be very watchful of as a PM. That don't stick to one position unnecessarily if the data is speaking otherwise.
So how good is that conflict management?
Sorry. Yeah. Conflict management, I think, is a day in, day out job of a product manager. Right? You are resolving the conflicts with your engineering stakeholders, with the marketing stakeholders. I think product manager having an ownership mindset really helps solving a lot of this. Because if you are having sufficient data to back your conversations, the conflicts, when do the conflicts arise? First of all, let's go into the core of that. The conflicts will arise when you have people taking positions and not relenting on that. Are you able to empathize with those positions? So let me give an example. I think there's a great way to solve, say, a particular customer problem. And my designers and I, we have worked together and we got that approach done. Now you reach out to your engineering teams who have not been involved in this process till now. And you realize that they're saying, no, this is not possible. I really cannot do it this way, right? This is technically not feasible. My tech stack is not really going to allow to do this, or the performance is going to be difficult. Now there's a conflict. You will have a situation which you have to go and resolve with your team. Now, if you as a PM have got a product ownership, a mindset, what will happen is that your conversations will be much more open discussions. It's like you're getting into a room trying to solve a problem. And sometimes it may have to be that you take a step back and say, I'm comfortable, absolutely comfortable in not solving in the way that that we propose. I'm willing to really flex my muscle and say, no, I'm absolutely okay. I respect your conversation on this or your position on this, and I'm able to resolve it. At the same time, there'll be occasions where you will take a strong position and say, no, I think this is a very important problem for my customer to be solved, and let's find more creative ways to really resolve it. Another way to resolve many of these conflicts are escalations. Right? So if you are doing effective escalations, which basically means that you're able to bring in the right level people, right? There can be problems that are beyond your pay grade, right? You may not be able to solve because the level at which you are, you're not able to just make that resolution effective. In those cases, having an effective escalation and having a very clear approach. I mean, when you say this problem, it's not about you're not accusing a person or you're accusing a function. You're accusing the limitation or just stating the fact that there is a situation. I have to prioritize something against something else, and those are the ways in which you can actually solve a lot of these conflicts. Conflict management is definitely one of the very crucial skills for a PM, right? Although in many organizations you will realize that this is done also by the PMOs, the program management, right? So PMOs may come and solve this for you. Those are situations. I mean, if you have a PMO at your disposal, nothing like it. But if you are the PM handling it all by yourself, then you will have to have that skills to really have that effective communication done with the teams, making sure they understand the problem that is right. There's a lot of trust involved in that whole conversation. And then when you come out on the other side, you realize that you have actually solved the problem. You may have to flex. You can't. If you're willing to flex and solve the problem, I think that's a great situation to be in. Right? Instead of taking a position and just sticking to that position without relenting, and that will not help you in that case. Right. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, what's your name? Kalyani. So if I got a question right, Kalyani, you're saying that whenever you are you're serving a market which is a remote market, and you will have to do remote customer research, then how do you go about doing this? Do you need to have somebody on the ground to do the research? Yeah, I think a great question, and I live that every day because a lot of our, most of our customers are in the markets which are beyond India, right? So I think in situations, if you are serving from India for a global market, it's very important for you to either be personally yourself in those places, or have a good representation who can actually bring that insight back into you. Right? If you don't have somebody who's there, yeah. So many times what we do is we do web sessions, we do blue jean sessions, we do video conferencing with the customers, and I think what is very important in this scenario especially is to articulate what are you really trying to do in that whole session. So for example, if you are in a video conference with a customer who is actually in the US, obviously first thing you set your timings which are comfortable for the customer. So obviously it's going to be in your night or early in your morning. Sending out the brief early on that what is it that you're going to trying to do in that whole research, and more important would be to if you have someone who can be in the room who has been very close to the customer, that will solve this for you very effectively. But I think a lot of these conversations that we do on the blue jeans, like for example, you may have a particular new feature that you are working on, and you want to validate that with the customers. We are fortunate enough in Intuit because we have a very set mechanism to really solve a lot of these, and I'll talk about it a little later. But assume that that's not there. What needs to be done in this case is you send out an upfront conversation to obviously you're getting a contact with the customer saying we want to meet you. You send out a brief upfront that what exactly are you going to do in that whole conversation. Send a structure of that research to the person, and then get into discussion. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So are you saying that how do you start the conversation, or are you saying that how do you do that remote research? Yeah. So if you're saying that how do you do remote research, that is obviously you are talking to a customer who is not in front of you. So obviously you have to factor that whole portion in. Is there a way in which if there's an existing customer, can you actually request the customer to open up the product and do a screen sharing session? We do a lot of that. And in many cases, if you're talking about a net new scenarios, right, there's a net new feature that you're trying to bring in, you state that, hey, we are trying to solve this problem. So for example, I'm trying to solve how the payroll can be run in a set of enterprises like you, which is 10 to 15 employees, and who are running bi-weekly payroll. So I set the scenario very clearly in front of them. And then I talk about, now I'm going to talk about how do you onboard your employees. And we are going to discuss about this flow on how you get your new employees onboarded and run a payroll for them. And I have got few screens that I will show this to you. And please give me your feedback as we go through the screen. Now, either it could be clickable prototypes, which I'll expect the customer to take control of and start clicking and do this. I will set the context right in the beginning that this is what I'm expecting you to do. And here are the screens. These are clickable prototypes. Let's see how you go about this. Now the customer will actually, you take the control of the screen and start clicking through. And what you will ask the customer is, since you are in a remote setting, you'll say, please think aloud. What you're doing, just think aloud. If you have questions to ask, please let me know what you're thinking. And then you go through that whole flow with the customers in a remote session. Right? If it's not a clickable prototype, you actually walk them through the screens, which are like obviously in a PowerPoint or in Vision Mocks or anything that you have. You're going to walk them through those screens and get those insights, and we'll probably record the sessions, take the notes, have somebody by your side who's going to take the notes because you're going to ask a lot of questions. So always good to pair up 2 or 3 of you together as a team to go and do that customer research. So that's what is very, very helpful. In Intuit, how we do this is, fortunately, we have got a dedicated team which works on this. So what we have is there's a customer recruitment team in Intuit, and we talked about Follow Me Homes. So every PM does multiple Follow Me Homes throughout the year. So each time I do that physically, I really go there on the customer sites, wherever the customers are, fly in there, actually go and take the appointment. The appointment and everything is taken by the recruitment team. So the customer recruitment team, which is dedicated to, they'll take our requirement. So what is the kind of customer you're looking for? I'll say I'm looking for customers who have got warehouses of this size, who have businesses of this size, who have got so many employees, and I'm looking to do this in, say, Chicago and around. Now this recruitment team will actually work hard to find customers for me who are in Chicago, and how many of them do you want to do? I would like to do maybe 2 or 3 in a day for 3 consecutive days. And the next question they will ask me is, okay, so where are you staying? I'll say I'm staying in this zip code, and you'll not believe what will happen next. They'll find me 10 customers around that zip code, walkable distance, and I'll go and actually do those interviews. So all that load is taken off me as a PM. And before joining Intuit, all of this I was doing myself. You will call the customers, you will get the customer database. You will actually, if taking all the privacy data and everything away, you will reach out to them through a customer account manager, take an appointment, do all of that upfront work, and then reach out to the customer and have that in-person interview. Here, it's kind of taken off from you. You just go and do and focus on your job. As a PM, it's a great place to be in. That I'm off this entire management and administration of customer research process. I just go and do my job, which is research the customer, interact with them, get the customer insights, take pictures, videos, do this entire note taking, and we often pair up too. It's always good to go as a dyad. Triad, perfect. If you at least go as a dyad. So somebody takes a note, somebody actually goes and asks a lot of questions, and you take turns to switch roles. Was that something you were looking for, or there was something else that there was in the question? Okay, good.
Lokesh,
Cool. Sure. I think go first.
So again, going back to the situation that being empathetic but not emotional, but is it viable that we can press certain product conceptualizations with our management?
Yeah.
Particularly in terms of investment. I would like to give you an example from my
Mm-hmm. Okay.
our company is into e-commerce deployments from Magento environment, and we actually also integrate. We are a company based on integrations with back office systems. A couple of years ago, I did a small POC with my team of system. I said we can integrate with QuickBooks for Magento community because that's where all small and industries are people are using. And we said QuickBooks integration is very big. Maybe we have to prioritize this and take it forward. And that way we would have also gotten much of Magento work, which is sizable work. But my management saw that there is not enough of traction from the search or queries, single queries.
Okay.
They said we do not want to do that. And our data was pointing against my perception that we should do another people. Now my company about 3-4 months ago, they said now we are seeing QuickBooks and Magento integration doing very well, particularly in the cloud world. And right now I see there are at least half a dozen companies already placed well. Now my company says now we have to do it.
Yeah.
So how would I have solved that?
Yeah.
Said no, I could have placed my company.
Right. No, I think great situation to be in. So basically you are yeah. So I'll just so Venkat's question is that he was looking for, he had some insight of a product or a solution, which based on his research, he had that identified, and he proposed that for to his management. The management said that no, we are not in a place to really do this, and I'm just skipping the specifics, right? So it becomes very generic for the audience. And then later, down in the horizon, a couple of years later, they found multiple competitors solving exactly the same problem, and now they want to go and pick up the threads and start to build it. That is a scenario. So if you are as a PM, so his question is, how better could I have approached my management and make a case for this, and we could have been ahead of the market if we had actually taken that decision. Is that your question, right? Yeah. No, I think great. One of the skills which we did not talk about of PMs is evangelization, and you will do that day in, day out. This is a classic case of evangelization where I believe that there is something which we need to do. Now, in the absence of data, would you be able to convince your management? I highly doubt. And if you put yourself in the shoes of your management, have they taken the right decision? Probably yes, because they were not being presented the right amount of data to really be backed up on this. What might have helped is if you had done some more customer interviews to back this whole thing up. That I've spoken to these 20 or 30 customers who are looking for an integration with Magento, because there are industry trends as well, by the way, right? A lot of these customers, so the case in point here is QuickBooks, which is a financial management software, and he's proposing a Magento integration. Magento is an e-commerce solution. Right? The case in point being told, you could have said more and more of companies are actually switching towards e-commerce. And these companies are also running their accounting software, because they always have to do accounting software as well. I have researched and reached out to these 20 or 30 companies, and they all have stated that they're willing to pay extra if you had an integration with Magento. Now, if I am a warehouse manager who has got an e-commerce business as well, I will be highly, this will be a highly palatable solution for me, because what is happening is you're giving me a real-time integration, because my e-commerce front and my physical store front, these two are now talking to the same backend software, and I'm able to present the inventory condition exactly in the real time. Am I able to visualize your situation, right? Yeah. So if I get an order from the e-commerce website and it shows me 20 pieces available, and somebody comes and books 10, my physical stores automatically make sure that those 10 are not available for sale anymore. Or the other way around, that physical store has already sold 10. Now what I show in my e-commerce is 10, not 20. So that I'm not reaching a situation where either I'm overbooked or underselling something. And there's a great value, right? If you see from those customers who are actually going to do this, for them it's a high value situation, and we are doing that today. I mean, by the way, not just Magento, but Shopify and all these integrations are actually in the fray. So I think what could have been probably a great outcome is bringing that data to the management. By the way, PMs have got more insights than the management will have. What management really expects from the PMs is, bring me the information, insight and data and convince me. Management is coming to a discussion with you. That itself is a big situation to be in, right? That they're not debunking you saying that I don't want to talk to you. They're saying, come to me, talk to me, but can you actually evangelize this by getting more data, more insights to the team? And today you can go and do that, right? Today you'll say, I told this. Don't be a crying baby now that I told you I'm not going to do this for you anymore, right? Go take that opportunity, usurp it, and just back it up. You might get great respect from the management from thereafter, right? That here's a guy who actually told us. He brought this data to us. We did not take the decision because of whatever resource constraints or our failure to spot the opportunity. All of that is fine. But as a PM, I have done my job to make sure that the right data is presented to the management. I would probably go out and start my own startup with doing something like that, right? And then be sold to the same management on some buck in between. But as a PM, you might want to do that. But
thank you.
yes.
So, one of the key skills of the PM is to out of the identified features that has to go to a product in short time. You should be in a position to prioritize. So, if the prioritization is the business value, how it is typically done? Is it the users value, or is it the value that is going to benefit the business? How you typically do
Yeah.
the industry?
It's both ways actually. When you say prioritization framework, there are multiple prioritization frameworks, and there are multiple things that will come into play here. If you let's take a 2x2, the value to the customer and the enterprise, and the effort involved to do this, low to high, right? Now, if there's anything which is high value to the customer and has got low effort, it's a no-brainer. You can actually just check the box, say this is something we are doing immediately. Problem comes when you have got a high value to a customer and high effort involved. That's when you will have this situation, because something which is low value to customer and high effort involved, checkbox out of the window. Something which is low value, low effort involved, high value to the customer, perfect, let's go and do that. The other situation is when you find this very difficult, when high value to the customer but very high effort involved. Now you have to make trade-off choices. Now that's when bringing in more data there will really be helpful. Your question, Srini, right? Your question was if I have got to make a choice between the value to the customer versus value to the enterprise, how do I decide that this is something which is high value to the customer but not a very high value for the enterprise? So let's talk about this a little bit. When something is going to be high value to your customer, the question to be asked is the customer willing to pay extra to get that? And these are situations, this is called value selling. So and probably you learned this in your executive MBA as well, that most B2B products do this. They don't do a transactional selling, they do a value selling. When you do a value selling, basically what you do is, I will not charge you based on the number of or upfront a flat fee. Instead, what I will do is, I will charge you based on the usage and the value that you will drive out of this product. That's when this becomes a very different conversation. Now, what is valuable to your customer is also valuable for the enterprise, because suddenly you've switched the game. This will be a case in most B2B scenarios. So let's take a company like SAP, right? You have say a procurement solution. Now, in a procurement solution, what are you saying to the customer is that I will come in and my product will reduce your overall procurement costs by so much, and you pay me a portion of this as my fee. That's our deal. I'm not going to charge you a flat fee. The product is free, you just take it, but whatever you will save is a portion of that is what I will appropriate as a fee to this. Now the story has switched, because it's valuable to the customer and you are confident that you know that there's a value to the customer. As a result, you're pegging your pricing to the value to the customer and also enhancing the enterprise value. So those discussions you might have to do.
So,
What's your name? Sorry. Puneet.
So, as a product manager, how do you deal with product analysis? You configure the product analysis on a B2B product which has sensitive information on the privacy.
Yeah. So first things, we have to operate under the ethics. That's very, very clear, right? There are multiple ways in which it is done. Probably not for the audience here. And whether companies do it or not, the companies do it. There definitely are ways in which you do it. There are analysts who help you do that. There are competitive inciting professionals who help you do that. A lot of that comes in, right? But I think it's very important for us to stay within the ethical boundaries to do any such competitive research. First, yeah, definitely, whatever is the public information available, definitely that's something which you will research. Okay. I want to refrain from that because what will happen is that it will take a conversation to a very different level. But let's take a case in point. Vimeo wants to do a competitive analysis of YouTube or the other way around. Right now, you have got two products which are competing with each other, and you are a PM of one of the products trying to do competitive analysis of the other product and see how the features and functionalities are differing. I think that's where, Puneet, your question was going. Yep. Yeah. So you will never go into the domain of getting into the privacy information of the customer. Companies are getting sued because of that, right? There are multiple examples right in our industry where companies have sued each other because there was competitive breach of security or privacy breach was there. There have been scenarios, so you have to be very, very careful in those domains. So I think there, if you are working for a large company, always live as a product manager, live by the values of the company, and don't try to breach those ethical boundaries. That's definitely a given. Now, whether you will have information about the competitive products, screen by screen, feature by feature, that's a very different conversation. But are there ways in which you can actually know what the competition is offering? Yes, there are Gartner reports, there are Forrester reports, which are, so that's what I was talking about. There are analysts who are actually bringing out those informations for you to really read through and understand, okay, what is it that the competition is offering. So a company A competing this space with a company B, let's take an example, an SAP and an Oracle, right? They are all publishing their product information on the Forresters and Gartners, and they are confiding in Gartners and Forresters. But Gartners and Forresters are not telling all the information to each other. They are publishing a report which give you sufficient information as a PM, if you are interested, for you to know what is the competition offer. So there are ways in which that's done, mostly through these analysts. Yeah.
So as a PM, right? So it is hard to prioritize, and you have to task, you have to stay focused on it. Right? So is there any specific goal-setting paradigms that you can share with us? As yourself personally as well as
Yeah. Sorry, your name? Nanda. And if I got your question right, Nanda, is for your team or for a PM, as they are setting out for their, say, for the year of performance, is there specific goals that are set in front of the team, and how do I measure them on that? Yeah. Yeah, so there are multiple ways in which that can be done, and so there's a people management side of it, there is a product management side of it, right? So I'm assuming you're asking more on the product management side of it, or?
I'm asking from a framework. Is there any specific tools
I'm still not getting a question right, Nanda. Is it? Oh yeah, okay. For a PM, what are the priorities that I set for? I mean, suppose I am as a product manager, what my management is setting. What kind of priorities are they setting for me? Okay, got it. Now I got your question right. Yeah, there are multiple things that actually what we can do here. One is you could actually peg the product adoption as one of the metrics. So, for example, if you are bringing in a net new product, you put the product management owners saying that, hey, the adoption of your product is going to be one of the success measures for you. Right? There could be retention as another success measure. That if you are having an existing product, then you will say, okay, how many of the customers really stayed with the product after a year? So, if suppose you were leaking out 20% customer year on year, and you did certain enhancements throughout the year, which has addressed the retention problem, and now the retention is, or the leakage is 10% or 12%. So you've incremented that by 8%. There could be customer satisfaction scores, NPS, which you can peg to the product managers. That this is what is also. So PMs often carry those kind of metrics on their head, which will help them being measured in the organization.
So, when you set a goal for a PM, right, you actually set it at a very high level, which is to say that, okay, it is very hard to reach it, but still let's find it.
Okay. Okay. No, I think setting realistic goals are very important, right? So it's not that I set unrealistic goals in front of my team just because I want to push them hard. But at the same time, first of all, the goals are set not bottom up but top down, right? So my organization leadership has set certain business goals for the company for this year, which translates into individual function areas, what each one of us have to do to meet those goals. That translates back to each level in the organization. And when it reaches the leaf node, that this is the goal that is set for you, that's coming from the top to down. Right? Now, the goals they're supposed to be realistically achievable, and that's also something which is going to be varying from person to person. So you might have a very high performer in a team for whom you will set a high goal. You will say, I know that this person is going to be actually has a capability to deliver, say, 100, and I will set 100 for a goal for the person. Whereas there's someone who is going to be probably not as high a performer, but I want to grow the person, give them some room so that they can grow themselves as well while they achieve the goals as well. I'm not going to be I'm not going to set unrealistic goal that, hey, each one of you go and fight for 120, 130, 140. So that's not what is the right approach in terms of setting the goals for the organization. Yeah. Sorry, Nanda, did it address your question?
No, so you as a company you have an objective.
Yeah.
And that trickles down among teams, right? And then from you to your management, right? So how, as a management team, the management is focused on ensuring that the team is working on the objectives of the business. For example, I think I don't know what you think, but for example, Google might do something like objective inclusion.
Yeah.
So do you use any of those?
Yeah, definitely. So there are KPIs for sure, which each group will carry on their shoulders, and there are multiple dimensions to that KPI, right? So for example, there could be a customer satisfaction KPI that we will take up. We'll say, okay, we as a group are committing to a 10% enhancement in the NPS ratings. So our customer satisfaction scores, or PRS, product review scores, or NPS, whatever you might want to call it, we are committing to do a 10-point enhancement in this for this year. So that's what will be one of the KRAs that we'll set for ourselves. There could be the revenue target KRA as well, right? That we are committing as a group to enhance our revenue by 10%. All of that are definitely trickling down. Are they realistic or unrealistic? The bar that we set is a function of the group that is involved, and also a function of the people that are involved. And obviously, it's trickling from top to down. And how we actually measure that is we do weekly check-ins, a monthly check-in, right? Quarterly check-ins. So all of that is kind of building up. So you're not having any surprise on the table for yourself or for your team member that, and my management is not having a surprise for me, or I'm not surprising them certainly. So we are doing like constant weekly, monthly, quarterly check-ins.
When you do check-ins, you also assign points to it, so that you know the progress.
Yeah. See, it's a bit of a look back and look forward, right? So it is always a mix of that, right? So if I only do a look back, then I end up only thinking about what happened. So I will obviously give a qualitative feedback on what has gone great and what are the areas of opportunities. But it's also more of look forward, that this is where we started out to go, and our progress is great or not great, and these are the reasons why it is not great. And obviously these are steps to be taken, and being more objective and very clear about what those specific steps are: situation, behavior, impact. So what was the situation? What was the behavior? What is the impact that you created? What could have been the alternate behavior? What is the alternate impact that you will create if you actually reach out on the other side? Yeah.
What is the
One last question. I don't know how we are doing on time.
we have another 9 minutes.
Okay, cool.
What is the role of PM in acquisitions?
Okay, I'll take that one as well. Your name?
Sandeep.
Sandeep. Yeah, and
So like, say some products might have just five, and some might have. So how do you know like all of them are
yeah, no. So it's a function of, and I'll take your question as well, right? It's a function of the obviously the product, the nature of the product as well, right? There will be certain products which are very early in their life cycle. Now, for these products, it's important how is the adoption going, right? So you will set adoption metrics more importantly for these products. There are certain products which are further down in their life cycles, and you will probably start to assign profitability metrics to those products. That okay, I am doing X amount of business. Say I'm doing $100 million a year on year, and the profitability target for this product for that particular year is 30% or 40%. Right. So it will definitely depend on the product, the nature, and the stage in which the product life, or which stage of product life cycle the product is in. Early stage, you'll see most of the products are going to be more about how much adoption, how many new customers, how many net new subscribers are you getting in these products. Now, obviously, as a PM, you will carry the quality as a metric. You will also carry the number of along with the engineering partners, right? The number of escape defects, what are things that you have not really addressed, how many customer bugs reported, and you will also partly share that with your customer success team, that what was the resolution time for each of those products. So all those metrics will come and fall into the product metric. Now, depending upon each stage of the product, the life cycle of the product, the metrics will start to vary. Right? Does that answer your question? Yeah. Your question, sir.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. So, how do we, what is the role of PM in adopting?
In acquisition. Yeah. PMs play a very significant role in mergers and acquisitions for sure. For your existing product, so that you have two sides of M&A, right? The receiving side and the acquirer and acquiree, both sides, right? So if you happen to be on the acquiree side, many times we as a PM actually target your product for acquisition. That you build a product in a way it is complementing some large product in the market, and such that you're constantly generating enough value, and you become a natural acquisition target. So there's those strategies that you also you take. There's the other side as well, where you are on the acquirer side. So you're looking for say product extensions which are available in the market, and you as a PM actually identify that those are decisions which are build versus buy decision. I will be able to accelerate my value in the market faster if I go and buy, instead of I build this inside out, right? So depending upon the resources that are there, you make those decisions as well, and you make recommendations. PM recommendations are extremely crucial from that. So you will actually end up making those acquisition recommendations that, and many times they start out with partnership. So what you do is, as a PM, you reach out to your team saying, hey guys, I know you're hands down full. We need this capability. I have identified 5 partners. Let's sit down, evaluate those 5 partners, and let's establish a partnership. So you'll extend your product through partnership, evaluate that, and see if that's going fine. You actually acquire it. Then you make an acquisition bid as well. And a lot of that is actually involved with how do you actually. Yeah.
Now, at what stage can we really say, or after collecting so much amount of data, can we really say, now we should really push this product and really scale this product?
Yeah. So let's try and answer this question in this way. Satya, your question is that I have got a early stage in the product. Yeah. Yeah. So I identified a product market fit. I realized that this is perfectly meeting. There could be phases in which you can actually approach this, right? So if suppose you are a net new product and net new company, right? You are in a startup phase. Now you found a product market fit. Often, and this goes to the 0 to 1 story, right? So the scaling from absolute 0 to say $1 million, that phase, and if you see, that phase is mostly about bootstrapping, finding all people put in their own funds, find angel investors, and do all of that, and find adoption of the product and test the product market fit. That there's sufficient amount of acceptance for this product in the market. Now, having done that, you obviously in this process have identified a lot of prospects as well, right? That will be your next phase of testing. So the companies go through this 0 to 1 phase, 1 to 100, and 100 and beyond. Right? Now that 1 to 100 is a very crucial phase. That's a phase. It's still not a scaling phase. That's a phase still your product market fit is being tested more and more with the new set of customers, and you need additional funds for doing that. Right? I think that's the place where you start to do more aggressive marketing and more aggressive reach outs and test the waters more. And obviously in this process you're building the product as well. Now, one mistake that might happen at this stage is that you end up beefing up your product in an incremental way, addressing only that few set of customers which are not really catering to the larger broad market. So I think we have to be very wary and careful about that as a PM. And PM makes a huge decision and has a huge stake in this, because while you are incrementing the product in that 1 to 100 phase, you have to be careful that if you have to scale this product to say $1 billion, how will you actually achieve that? What kind of markets exist? So you build a product in a way not just catering to these 5 customers that came on board early, but also having a sight of these others which are prospects, but which will buy a product if you end up providing these features. So that's the decision that PM makes very frequently. You have to live that. I mean, that's something which the scaling is still further. I mean, when you do 100 to 100 and beyond, that's when you do the scaling exercise. That's when you bombard the market with your messaging. You have large customer base. You're actually doing all of those in that. And again, it depends upon the nature of the product, right? You might be a very niche product. Say, for example, you might be a product manager in a startup which is catering to hedge fund optimization. It's a very specific niche product. If you count the number of customers which are going to be there, how many number of hedge funds are going to be there, right? They're going to be countable. Now, if you are a startup, would you be able to go to a hedge fund which is like $1 trillion hedge fund? No, right? You probably will have for your startup a set of customers who are going to be very well defined. Now, so you start out slow, you start out low, and you go with only those customers, you test your market, you build a product in a way that you are able to actually bring in the insights to these hedge funds early on. Now, you as a PM will actually do a lot of that exercise early on. Now, scaling of that will come as a later phase when you from the tech stack ready that I can actually scale. I can actually go to the large hedge funds, which requirements for them is transactional requirement for them is very, very high. You need almost real-time data to really get. It's no more just talking about Bloomberg API getting that data into it. Right? It's gone to a very different level altogether. So if you're a PM on that kind of a product, your approach is going to be slightly different. Where you have already limited set of customers which are going to come in. But if you're a PM for say LinkedIn, right? You're bringing a new enhancement say for LinkedIn learning. Now, as you try to get into that shoes, you're talking about a scale which is like hundreds of millions of customers, and right. So your scaling is already going in a different magnitude. So the approaches that you take here, and this is more B2C-ish, this is more B2B-ish, and depending upon where you as a PM are and which stage of life cycle of product is, your scaling discussions are going to be very different. So I mean, take the strategies for that are that PMs live in three worlds. I live in the past, I live in the present, I live in the future, and I live these three realities every day. I have delivered a product. This is there in the market, which is raising bug fixes. I have to live in the past. I'm doing a release, which is going on. There are three releases, multiple running in parallel. I'm working on all the three releases, making sure that the requirements are being met for all the three releases. I'm living in the future because my roadmap is still not ready. I have to still talk about the next year's roadmap. So I'm constantly living that reality of these three worlds, and that's the life of a PM every day.